Okay, so can you hear me now? Too many buttons, too many things to press.
Too many buttons, too many things to press. Too many buttons, too many things to press.
Okay, so let's get rid of that weird thing. We're sounding okay, yeah? Everything okay? Awesome stuff. So before we start doing anything, just want to quickly say that, is the echo still going? Or is that kind of gone? There was a bit of a weird echo, I know. Let me know. Okay, cool. I've literally just set all this up now. I've got the Mac, as you can probably see, and I've just been using a piece of software called Ecamm Live that allows me to do a lot of really cool things. So I've set that up, and I'd set the live to go, and I didn't use that to trigger it. So it just meant now that all the setup that I've just been trying to do and all the things I've got set up around me, all the slides and the overlays, all those kinds of things, are all now just out the window because that just will not, for some reason, connect up to my live stream. Obviously, I don't want to cancel this live stream and start a new one because that just gets confusing. So we're going to be a little bit of a stripped back exercise tonight. So you're going to have to bear with me a little bit if things are not to the same level as what we're used to doing. So first of all, I do have a beer, and as you can see, it's my usual. I can get that to focus for me. There we go. We've got Hazy Jane in today, Brewdog. And as you can see, unfortunately, I don't have a sponsorship yet. So fingers crossed that will happen at some point. But I hope you've got a beer yourselves and you're ready for tonight's live stream. So first of all, let's just say a couple of hellos to who's in tonight. As always, first of all, thank you very much, Carl, for joining us tonight. I'm glad you didn't fall asleep. That's all I'm going to say. Steve Pro, good to see you here. Christian, good to see you too. Nick Page, Justin Doyle, Dave Orff. We've got Christoph. And who else do we have? Our sponsor. Please do, Carl. If you want to send me at least 40 crates of Brewdog over Christmas, result. Okay, so first of all, how is everybody doing tonight? Are you all okay? Are you safe? Where are you from? If we've got some new peeps in tonight, let me know where you're from. Good to see Richard in tonight. I'm glad to see that you could make it and you're not having to watch the replay. So hopefully it won't be too disappointing tonight. Pablo, good to see yourself here, as always. Steve Pro, Diet Coke, got to pick the wife up later. Oh, man. That's what taxis are for. Come on now, Steve. You've got to try a little bit harder. I'll have a couple of beers for you just to get over the stress of my setup not working. Charlie, good to see you as well. Nick Page from Blackwood. Well, that's very close. How are we doing, sir? And we've got Chris Barlow from London, Ontario, Canada. We've got Craftier Studio from India. Christian in from Germany, Mexico. Good to see you here from Swansea. Nice to see the Welsh contingent are in force tonight. That's always good to see. So, good to hear, Nick. Good to hear. South Africa, again, good to see you as well. 20-mile round trip, Steve. Oh, I do apologize for that. But, hey, look, sometimes that money you're going to spend on a taxi is absolutely worth it. Tony B in from Spain. John from Hannibal in USA. That sounds a little bit ominous. Raining in Chelmsford with Paul. So, yeah, it's a little bit drab and horrible here, to be honest. So, what better way to spend a Thursday evening than a lockdown live with a beer, some good friends, and just talking some technical rubbish. Okay. And we've got from Oregon again, from Spain, Tony B. Excellent. Good to see we've got the global contingent in tonight. And we've got Dave from Belgium as well. Hope it's not raining in Belgium like it is in the UK at the moment. Okay, so there's only a couple of things I want to cover tonight. So I'm going to find it a little bit weird now because I don't have the screens to be able to pop up. So I can show you all these nice little graphics and things that I've done for you as well. But please bear with me and hopefully we'll still find that there's enough information here to make it useful tonight and at least informative. No beer in Welsh pubs. No, not after 6 o'clock and not after Friday. You're right, Steve. Absolutely terrible. Carl, you don't need to sponsor me, sir. It was only a joke. But thank you very much. You are, as always, an absolute star. And the merchandise is in the post. Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to talk about tonight. Good evening, Fagan. Primarily focusing again around the business side of things like we've talked about over the last couple of sort of live streams. And I know that a few people have actually enjoyed this kind of thing. So I think the live streams are going to be more about that side of things. because I think that's kind of like useful, whereas I keep the technical side of things to the dedicated videos on their own, which I think is more in keeping for the kind of things that I do there. So hopefully you'll enjoy this, and hopefully it'll be something that'll help you out wherever you are on your journey to becoming a freelancer, an agency, whatever kind of platform you're kind of working with. So I hope you'll enjoy that this evening. And as always, this is a two-way conversation. So I want to put ideas out there, chuck different suggestions out there, and I want you to come back and feedback to me in the live chat. If you're watching the replay, then get involved in the comment section, because I do check those out, and I'd love to continue the conversation beyond what we do in the live chat. So don't be afraid to drop some comments, some feedback, anything like that in the comment section as well, and keep the conversation going. Okay, who else do we have in the moment? Fagan, 11:30 p.m. Oof, it is a late one for you tonight then. So I think you definitely need to have a nice cold drink to just help you sustain yourself into the early hours of the morning talking with us techie nerds. Okay, so Nigeria, good to see you. I'm sure it's a damn sight warmer in Nigeria than it is in Wales at the moment. Brandon, do you work with restaurants? I need advice on setting up an online food. Let's keep the questions to a little bit later. Yes, I do work with some restaurants and ordering systems and things. I think there's a lot of different options available. So I think I'd let the good folk in the comment section, the chat section, just say if they found any solutions. So as we're going through things, check out the comment section or the chat section. And I'm sure some people will come back with some different ideas on there. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about tonight is next Wednesday. Now, unless you haven't seen it, next Wednesday, I'm going to be having an informal live chat with my good friend Dave Foy. And I'm sure you are all aware of Dave Foy. He's an incredibly nice individual, very good teacher, and he started a new venture which is all about helping people that want to look at online courses, sort of creating education information, things like that. He's got a new project where he wants to take people that are new to the game, new to this kind of world, and help them create courses, help them create much better sort of landing pages, course content, course structure, and just create real good quality products. And part of that process is he's gone over from WordPress to Webflow to create his new website for this new project. So we've had a conversation back and forth, and he did a live stream yesterday, all to do with why he chose Webflow, some of the things he likes about it, he doesn't like about it, the pitfalls, the learning curve, and so on. So we're going to have a little bit of an informal chat next Wednesday at 6 p.m. same time as today. And I'd love it if you could just hop on that and just get involved. Again, we're going to have a two-way conversation. Me and Dave's going to have a chat, and we're going to take a look at the comments and things. I'm going to answer your questions. So please do get involved. It's already up on the YouTube channel. So all you got to do is hit that little schedule or notification button, and you'll be notified when that's due to go live. So I would love to see as many of your happy faces getting involved in that. Please do. Next Tuesday, 6 p.m. GMT. Okay. Let's have a little look. Yeah, Carl, crack the whip, young man. Lee Barnes, evening all, watching from my car while son back in football training. Oof, I bet it's cold watching that. So good to see you, and I hope it's not too cold in the car. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to your business side of things, and we've covered quite a lot in the last couple of weeks to do with different things with regards to business. I want to start off, first of all, with dealing with proposals. Now, proposals are one of those things that when you've had that initial contact with a potential client, we'll call them a prospect from now on. So when you've had that initial contact with a prospect, you've done your fact-finding conversation with us, face-to-face, Zoom call, whatever. You've done your fact-finding. You're finding out what they want. You're getting a feel for their business. And the next thing you need to do then is to provide them with an indication of the cost, what they're going to get and what they're not going to get. So I want to take a look at a couple of different options for that. Why I think it's incredibly important that you focus a good chunk of your time when you're working with clients, new and old, on making sure that you have these things set up correctly. And we're going to take a look at a couple of tools which I think are going to be useful. One of these is on a lifetime deal over on AppSumo. So if you are looking for a tool to make your life a little bit easier and you want something that there's no ongoing costs, that could be something that's useful. And we will take a little look at that as part of the video tonight. So you're going to see what it's like from the dashboard. So you can take a look. Now, I'm not suggesting you purchase this one. I'm not suggesting you purchase anything. But if you are going to be doing proposals for clients, you realistically want to have something that makes the process quicker, because it is insanely time consuming to deal with these kinds of things. And I used to kind of do it very manually way back before I found a platform called BidSketch, which I no longer use, but it is a good platform. And I've talked about it before in the past. So you can save yourself a lot of time, a lot of hassle, because a lot of proposals are going to be repetitive, regardless of whether you're doing like SEO, landing pages, full web design, care contracts, maintenance plans, anything at all. You realistically need to have some kind of proposal in place. And the other benefit of using a platform like Better Proposals, BidSketch, Fresh Proposals, those kinds of things, a lot of them allow you to sort of get digital signatures, which means that instead of just using it as a proposal platform, you could quite easily set up your contract, your agreements, whatever you're kind of going to use to make sure that, you know, you're legally binding the clients and you're outlining what you're going to do, what you're going to supply, and so on. Once you've got that, you then have a digitally signed agreement, which means that if there's any discrepancies, any problems in the future, you've got something there that says, this is what I outlined, this is what the client agreed to, this is when they signed it, so everything is above board. Platforms like I say, Better Proposals, Fresh Proposals, and so on, they just make that process much easier, and you've always got a digital copy online. And once they've been signed, you can't edit them. And that's the thing to bear in mind, is the fact that there can be no arguments afterwards saying, well, you've modified this isn't what I agreed to. Once they're signed, at least with Better Proposals, that is no longer editable at all. So it's a locked document that can't be changed. So that's what I want to talk about in this first part. The second part, we'll take a look at some other things like contracts and so on. And I'll show you a contract that's quite useful as a starting point. But that's where I am. Now, I'm going to throw the question over to you now. Anybody that's in the chat at the moment that's involved in working with clients in any kind of way, like I said, it doesn't matter what service you provide, whether it's web design, maintenance, care plans, you know, those kinds of things. What do you do when it comes to the proposal side of things? Do you do it manually? Do you use a platform like Better Proposals or, you know, BidSketch or Fresh Proposals or anything like that? Or do you use some other kind of method? Let me know what you're using right now. And if you're not using one, again, let me know why you're not using one, because I think you could potentially be opening yourself up to a whole boatload of problems if you're not protecting yourself and outlining exactly what you're going to do for the money that you're being paid by any particular client. So let me know in the chat section. Let's get some feedback on that. And then we're going to take a quick look at Fresh Proposals. I'm also going to show you, Better Proposals, so you can kind of get a feel for the two, some of the things I like about it, and why I really think they are the best way forward. So I'll jump over to the chat now and take a little look at what you guys are actually saying in there. Okay, what do we have? So we've got, Charlie Bird, oh my God, I need this advice. Well, hopefully this is going to be something that's very useful to you, and you will find it something that, will just help you move forward. Because I think if you set this up in the right way, you could just save yourself a whole bucket load of time, a load of stress. Because I know for me, when I used to sort of do them manually in Word, it would just take me, if I had to do a proposal for not a massively complex project, it could take me the best part of a day to write one of those up. And that's fine if you win the contract and you end up with, £10,000 contract. That day was well worth investing. But when you're having to, you're getting contacted, say, a couple of times a week, and you're creating these, and you're taking half a day to put something together, and you win 1 in 10, then suddenly your ratio of time versus reward, the amount of money you're going to make from it, suddenly dwindles considerably. And this, like I say, is where a tool that just makes the process a lot less complex, a lot less time consuming, can just save you so much time, and also the headache. Because when you know something's going to take you the best part of half a day to do, and there's no guarantee you're going to get it, you kind of just put them off, and you don't necessarily put the effort in that you should do. And that might be the reason why you don't win as many contracts. But it's just kind of inevitable that human nature is, when you've got a repetitive task that's not much fun, takes a lot of time, a lot of brain, activity, a lot of thinking, a lot of research in a lot of cases, you just kind of put it off and you don't necessarily want to do your best job because there's other things that are making you money and that's not making you money. So anyway, let's have a little look. What do we have? So like I say, Charlie, hopefully this will be something that will give you an idea. And like I say, whether you chose something like Fresh Proposals or Bid Sketch or Better Proposals, whatever, or something completely different, doesn't matter. The tool is not important. What it does for you is important. And that's why I say just check them out. So Richard Wade, I normally draft a document in Word. So Richard, please do tell me, how long does it generally take you to draft up a proposal in Word? What's your sort of process for doing it? Do you have sort of like copy and paste blocks of information that you just take and you put those into every single proposal you put out there? And what's your kind of win ratio by doing it that way? Because the other thing, I've won sort of contracts and I've sort of got a lot of great feedback because of the way that my proposal is delivered, that they're getting a nice online digital format. I can embed videos in there if I wanted to. I can put example websites in, links. So it makes the whole thing really a pro-looking document. And I know that's actually got me brownie points for potential clients. Once they've seen that, it's kind of an impressive thing when someone just basically sends, no disrespect, Richard, a Word document that might not be that well formatted, that well laid out, or it could just be, predominantly a text document. There's lots of reasons why these tools are just quite useful. Anyway, I'm going to have a little drink, and I'm going to come back and take a look at some questions. Oh, sorry, some comments. Okay. What do we have? Paul Keating, not usually when I have a bank of contracts that suit every type of service I provide. I've shared this at a select few friends from here and paid a solicitor to actually draft them for me. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But sometimes that whole digital side of things, and again, taking what you've already created, having a bank of templates in a tool like, and I keep referencing these. These are just ones that I'm familiar with. So don't take it that I'm endorsing them or saying that you should go and choose one of these if you choose anything at all. But like Better Proposals, for example, or Fresh Proposals, you can create your templates and you can literally pull those in, have tags inside there that will auto fill out your new client's details. Then you can edit things. So the whole process of taking something you may already have in a template, using that, fine-tuning it for the particular project, and then sending it off and tracking the fact that it's been opened, how long it was open, what they've looked at. And then you can kind of go back with, if someone spent a long time on a certain part of your proposal and they've opened it 5 times and they've gone to that bit, well, you could then easily do a follow-up call, a follow-up email, whatever, saying like, oh, I know that you're looking at section X on the site. If you've got any questions on that, or you want me to clarify anything, or just need to have a chat about it, let me know, and I'll be happy to give you a call, drop you an email, pop in, face-to-face, Zoom call, whatever. They have lots of useful little facilities that go above and beyond just the ability to have a contract or a proposal in place. So there's lots of really good, useful reasons to use them. I know they changed the process for me. I know they changed a lot of different things where a client says, oh, I didn't receive your proposal. And I can log on and go, yeah, you did. I can't say that to them, obviously, but I can see that they've been on there. I can see when they've opened it, how many times they've opened it, what pages they've looked at, how long they've spent on the pages. So you're not going in blind. You're kind of going a little bit forewarned, should we say. Okay, so what else do we have? Let's have a little look. Having a look at Fresh Proposals, 49-time lifetime on AppSumo. Exactly, Steve. I picked it up yesterday myself for a tutorial or a video that I'm putting out, hopefully in the next day or so, or maybe Monday at the latest, that will show you how you can combine various different tools together to create a sideline or to augment your current business with a range of different tools that could just be quite useful. So I'm not going to say any more than that. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but yeah, I picked up a few different things. And like I say, Fresh Proposals, I set up my account probably about 2 hours ago, had a quick look around it, was quite impressed with how intuitive and how professional it is, and also the range of different templates they've got and the ability to edit things really, really quite down to a fine level. So we'll take a little look at that in a little bit once I've taken a look at some of the comments on here, and then we'll take a look at some other things. Okay. Nick Page, it's money is the issue at this stage, just starting out. DIY route is taking a lot of time. Honestly, Nick, I know exactly where you're coming from, because when I started my business prior to the freelance side of things, money was a massive issue there. And you just looked at how do I, maximize the money that I've got while not committing myself or overcommitting myself. And this is why I say about fresh proposals today, because it's on a lifetime deal, even the lowest, and the link's in the description if you want to check it out, even the lowest deal at $49, which is about £42, that gives you, I believe it's either 20 or 30 active proposals. Now, active just basically means they haven't been signed. So once they're signed, they're taken out of that. And if you've got 30 clients with proposals out there and you're not chasing them up, or you haven't won them, well, you can kind of just remove those from there anyway. So take a little look at that. Like I say, check out the link in the description below. It'll take you straight to it. And at $49, you've got a lifetime deal on that then. And even if it only lasts you 3 years, by the time you've gone 3 years of using this, you've probably saved more time than that's cost you to purchase it. But also, it just makes your life a lot less stressful, because doing it manually, I hated doing it manually. It was just one of my absolute pain points in the business. Absolutely hated it. Right, okay, what do we have? Pablo, do you use your quotes as the same document for the contract, or are they different documents? I don't really call them so much quotes, they're more proposals. So my proposal I'll have a conversation with the potential client, the prospect. They may provide a design brief, or we may have a meeting at which point I'll go through what they're looking to achieve from their website. The normal things you kind of go through when you're meeting with a potential prospect client. Once I've got enough information there, the next thing I'll ask them to do is send me through some examples of sites they like, sites they dislike, just typical links, maybe, 5 or 6 of each. Tell them to just quickly outline what it is they do and what they don't like about each of those, so I can kind of get a feel for things. Hopefully, if they're not a startup business and they've got no branding, they've got some basic collateral there, so they'll have color schemes, they'll have logos and stuff like that already set out. So I'll have enough information to put together at least a starting design proposal. Once I've done that, then I'll put the proposal together. It outlines all the things that's included, any ongoing costs, any optional things that they've talked about but they didn't know if they wanted them, or some things that I think would be beneficial to them that they may not even contemplate or know about. Put those in there as optional extras, which they can choose to add if they want, as opposed to opt out of. Once that's all kind of done, then the next thing I'll do is spend a little bit of time putting the proposal together, tweaking it, and then I'll send that through to the client. If they're happy with that, they can sign that off to say that they are happy with it. Now, at this point, I've got a basic terms and conditions as part of my design proposal, or my project proposal. So when they sign it, they're kind of signing to those things. And then what I'll do is, once they've paid their 50% deposit, which is a kind of committal point, then I'll send them a design contract that is a complementary document that references back to the design proposal, which is they've already signed. And that then outlines all the things that will be done for them, how they pay for things. So it'll say that they're going to be charged X amount of money for the entire project. They pay their deposit and so on. But my agreement, contract, whatever you want to call it, is very flexible. And this started out as what's called the contract killer. And again, we'll take a look at this a little later in the video. And also, I've got links in the descriptions if you want to check it out for yourself. That's a great starting point, and it flipped what I did with my normal contract years ago on its head. Because what you find is, when you set up in business, you start working with clients, you'll have a basic contract that says you'll do all these different things and you don't include this and blah, blah, blah. And then what generally tends to happen, or I know what happened with me, was that you come across different scenarios with different clients. You think, I need to put something in my contract that stops that happening because it wasn't a good way of working. And then you end up with a contract that just has lots of clauses that says, I don't do this, I don't do that, we don't do this, we don't do that, blah, 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 blah. So you try to lock things down. And I think mine ended up being either 9 or 12 pages of A4 in small print. And it was just scary for people. So this contract killer flips it on its head. It just basically says, well, we're going to do these things for you. Check back to your design, your proposal. And if you want other things, let me know. And what I'll do is, if we can do them, we can add them into the design that we're working with. I'll quote you separately, and you'll have a separate proposal and a separate agreement. And it just means that you don't lock people down to what they can't have. You just give them the flexibility to say, this is what we're starting off with, and that's what it's going to cost you. And if in the future, whether that's during the development or 6 months after, a year after, you want to add more things on or change things or just have a complete different design, that's no problem. But it's not included in this phase. And if you want it at whatever sort of level, or whatever sort of section or time inside the entire project lifecycle you can have it, and I will quote you separately on it. And that will then have its own separate agreement, proposal, price plan. That just gives you a lot more flexibility and also makes the client feel like they can change their mind if they want to. They're not trying to be locked down into never being able to change their mind. They just know there's going to be a cost implication. And because you put that from the get-go, it's easier to say, no problem, I'll give you a quote or proposal on it. And then they don't have a shock because, well, they should have already read this. They should have already agreed it. When they signed it, they should have read it. And they understand this whole thing, which means then that you get flexibility. And it's a lot easier to sell more to the client when they change their mind. Hope that makes a little bit of sense anyway. Okay. What else do we have? Let's have a little look. Okay, so this is going a little bit slower. Paul, before you send a quote, okay, sorry, Pablo, I hope that answered your question. I hope that made sense. Steve Pro, first impressions on fresh proposals, I assume you're sort of talking about. Looks pretty good. I haven't tried building a proposal. One of the things I like about better proposals is that you have less options, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, but more a case you have less options in the design stage. So once you set your global styles out for your titles and all those kinds of things, you can just focus on just creating the proposal without having to think about, fonts and colors and so on. From what I saw with fresh proposals, it had a lot more options to fine-tune and tweak a proposal as you design, as you're sort of creating it. But you don't need to use that. So I haven't really played with it enough to say that's a negative or a positive. I think everybody's probably going to be a little different on that. We'll jump over and take a look at it in a little bit anyway, so you can kind of see what you think of it, and I'll give you my first impression because I have literally logged in, clicked around a couple of different parts of it to see what's in there, and nothing more than that. So you'd be looking at it with virgin eyes the same as I will be. Okay, let's have a little look. Fresh proposals, thank you very much, Carl, for popping those in there. You are an absolute gentleman. Nick, no problem at all. I hope that is useful for you. Okay, April. Before we jump on to any of those other ones, let me just quickly go back to Richard's comment. There are a lot of tire kickers. Absolutely there are. And this is, I think, you want to qualify a potential prospect, potential client, before you get to the proposal phase. You'll never rule all of it out. You'll always find people that they'll balk. They just won't go ahead with it. And I think this is where the most important part of being open and transparent and giving an indication of price. So if you have a face-to-face meeting with someone, if you have a Zoom call with someone, if you just have an email from a potential client, customer, whatever, one of the things I think you should absolutely have in your contact form, we'll come back to the sort of actually talking face-to-face or via the phone in a moment, is you should have a form that allows you to, if you do other services or just web design, they'll choose whether they want like e-commerce, blog, custom web design, whatever. You have conditional logic on there that says it changes the budget based upon your starting price. So for example, your blog might start at £1,000. Your e-commerce might start at £5,000. So when they choose what type of website they want, and they click, the price for the budget section of the contact form, the quote form, whatever you want to call it, will have a price indicator in there. So you can say, what's your budget? And it starts at 5,000 as opposed to starting at 1,000, which obviously isn't applicable when they're looking for e-commerce. So you pre-qualify most people, because if they see that 5,000, they think, whoa, that's way too expensive for me. They're not going to bother contacting you. However, if they contact you and they've seen that £5,000, dollars, whatever, you kind of partially pre-qualified them. Now, when it comes to a phone call or a Zoom call, you can just talk about budget. Don't be afraid to discuss budget. In all honesty, one of the first things you should do once you found out what the project entails is ask the customer, what's their budget, and then add 50% on. So most customers are not going to say, if they got £5,000 to spend, they're not going to tell you 5,000. They're going to say 3,000, 2,500, because they're going to think, well, I know what my budget is, but I don't want to tell them straight away. At which point you can turn and say, oh, well, that's okay. Unfortunately, e-commerce projects start at 5,000 and move up from there depending upon the specifications. At which point, either the conversation ends and you've got rid of that tire kicker, or the conversation starts properly where they go, you can sort of say, that's where I start. How does that work out for you? You say you got a budget of 2,500, but the reality is that's where we start. If that's not within your budget, thank you for calling. And unfortunately, I don't think we could sort of help you on this project. But don't be afraid to talk about budget. That way you get rid of those tire kickers. Like I say, there will always be some getting through, but your red flags will pop up. You'll see certain things that tire kickers will always do the same thing. They'll be, my cousin can do it for half that price. Oh, I've seen another company that's doing it for 50% less than you are, 75% of what you're charging, whatever. At which point say, well, that's fine. That's no problem at all. If your budget doesn't stretch to working with us, with me, whatever, no problem at all. By all means, please go and take a look at that at the company. And if you want to come back to me at any point and carry on this conversation, please do. But don't be afraid of asking people what their budget is. And if it doesn't fit for what you're doing, walk away from it. Say thank you very much, but no thanks. I know at the moment it's it's a difficult situation. A lot of businesses, a lot of people, whether it's a main business, whether it's a sideline, a side hustle, whatever, money is hugely at a premium right now because of what's going on in the world. So I totally understand. But we've talked about this in the past. Sometimes the money that you get up front for a project is not worth the ongoing stress, hassle, and worries that you may encounter by taking that project on. Not every project, not every client is a good fit for you. But like I say, talk budget, and if it doesn't fit in their budget, move on or get them to up their budget. If they want to work with you that badly, they'll pay the money. And if they won't, well, the job wasn't worth the effort anyway. So you've stopped it at the point of going to the next stage, which is that proposal time that you can end up wasting. So, Richard, I hope that's kind of at least help a little bit. Okay. Let's have a little look. And then we'll take a little look, like I say, in fresh proposals in a moment, so you can kind of get an idea of what that does. Let's have one more comment. And what do we have on here? April. A lot of clients need strategy work to look at ways their website can help their business grow rather than just jumping in to build their ask. I shine by helping them with strategy first. I typically charge separately for that and follow up with a web design proposal based on what comes out of the strategy work. However, this is a little harder to sell sometimes. Any tips? If you've done this for businesses in the past and what's come of it is that they've ended up with more sales, more clients, whatever the goal, if you're sort of working on a strategy, they've got a goal. They've got an outline of what they want to achieve with their website, with their, marketing, with their ad campaigns, whatever it is that you're helping them actually strategize with. What you need to do is just kind of sit down with your new prospect and say, well, look, client X, and you don't have to give names, but obviously if you've got testimonials and you've got sort of real world cases that you can call upon, that's going to be invaluable. But sit down with them and say, look, these are the goals that you're looking to achieve with whatever the second stage is going to be, the web design, whatever. Sit down and say, I've worked with X number of clients with a very similar outline of what they want to achieve as you do. We put together this strategy. We put together the new website. We put together the ad spend, whatever it was. And this is what they achieved from it. They achieved a 50% increase in clients, a 30% increase in turnover, 20% increase in profitability, whatever those kind of tangible benefits based upon what, the strategies that you put together for them have actually created, how it's changed their business. And that should be your sales pitch. That you shouldn't have to justify. The one thing I always hated was you'd have a prospect would come to you and you go, so tell me, why should I use you? I said, Well, you decided, you've done some research, I would hope, and you picked probably more than one web design company. Why did you pick me over, person X, company Y, whatever? You chose me for a reason, whether that's because, you like the work I've done, you've seen the testimonies, you might have spoken to people about the work that I've done, whatever research you've done about working with me. I don't need to justify myself to get the job. If you want that kind of justification, you should be doing your own research. You don't have to say it like this. Obviously, you'd be a lot more polite about it. But I've basically done that. I've turned around to a client and say, well, why did you choose me to come and have a conversation with? Why did you choose me to get a proposal off and have a meeting? There's a reason why you chose me. If it's just a numbers game, you needed to get 5 proposals for $1,000 or something, well, I don't think I need to justify myself. You're not paying for the project anyway, or you're not paying the full amount. So chances are you don't really care. You're just looking for the cheapest one that gets you the most amount of sort of results, as in the best website, the biggest website, whatever it's going to be for the money. So I would say, don't feel like you need to justify yourself. Let your results do the talking for your business. That's what I would say anyway. So I hope, April, that's at least sort of answered part of your question. And I hope, let me know what your success rate has been with this. How do you go about, selling yourself to the sort of prospect without basically pimping yourself out? What do you use? What are the methods you use to close that project? Let me know, because I'd love to know. Pablo, fantastic answer for my question. Thanks a lot, Paul. I will apply your advice. No problem at all. Like I say, any advice that I give you, or any sort of answers I give to any questions, pick whatever you want from it. I mean, a lot of what I'm talking about has come from my own experience, and I've never really dealt with massive, corporations or things like that. This is why I don't kind of tackle this in the live streams or on the channel or anything. I focus on the freelance side of things, even though prior to being a freelancer, I had a business and myself and a partner, but it's still kind of operated in a very similar fashion. We're dealing with SMEs, small to medium businesses, individuals, artists, accommodation businesses, florists, all different kinds of different things, which I would assume most of us that are having this kind of conversation, that's the kind of market we would be looking for, not dealing with, big multinational companies, because they're never going to come to one person, I wouldn't say, unless, of course, you've got such an amazing reputation, you can put out such amazing work, which, I'm sure is a possibility. But most of those bigger companies are going to want to have a much better support mechanism than you could provide at a one-man band. So I say, my answers are solely based upon a freelancer, a very small agency, a small design team. Once it gets bigger than that, then I would say, well, the principles may be applied to a small extent. I would say that the expectations of the clients and the prospects would be substantially different to being a freelancer or a small agency or small design team. Hope you kind of get where I'm coming from with that. Okay. Just bought fresh proposals after debating for a couple of weeks, £49, £38. Well, the nice thing is, Steve, as you know, you've got 60 days. If you find it doesn't do what you want it to do, you've got 60 days, you get your money back. That's one of those things that I think is great about AppSumo. If you do pick up a deal and you find it's not what you expected it to be, which does happen, then you can get your money back. Now, speaking of AppSumo and deals, there was a comment a little way back at the beginning of this where I asked about what tools you're using, and someone did come back and say Plutio. Now, I do apologize, I didn't note that at the time, but Plutio was one of those deals on AppSumo that is a product that's grown and grown and grown and become a really solid product. So if you pick that up, you can do invoicing, you can do proposals inside there. So if you've got that and you haven't looked at it in a while, go back and check out Plutio, because it is a really solid platform that's growing really, really well. So have a look at that. Okay, so that's one can down. On to number 2. Next up, what do we have? Sorry, I'm just scrolling down and it's just flying by because there's a big chunk of comments that I missed out. Justin Doyle, this is a huge pain point for me, and I feel like I undersell. I don't know how to approach including graphics, copy, etc. Do you line item these things or one fee? Line item. Everything that you're going to provide, put a line item in there for it, because it just means that if you get a client that says, unfortunately, this is going beyond my budget, you put together a proposal, they said, oh, my budget is £2,000, and your proposal comes out at, say, £2,500 once you look at the residual costs and things like that, and they go, oh, unfortunately, I've had a look at it, and my budget's dropped a little bit more, I can only do like 1,800 now, and I'd love to work with you, the usual sob story kind of thing. When you have line items in there, you can say, well, that's no problem at all. I'd love to work with you. I'm really excited about what you're offering. I love the sort of like direction your business is going in. And if I can help, I would love that. So how about we take a little look at what's included in the proposal, and we take out the things that are not really needed or things you could do yourself. And that way we can bring the price down. We can work together, and you still get in the core things that you need, but then you can take on some of these other things yourself. It gives you flexibility to be open to say, well, instead of me doing the copywriting, for example, or me doing the graphics, how about we take those things out and you do those things yourself? When it comes to the copy side of things, is it going to be as effective? Possibly not. But, you give that flexibility, and the line item way of approaching things means that you can take things out and people can see that you've taken them out and what the cost implications would be. That's the way I would go about it. I always break things down. I don't lump things together because I think it's too restrictive, and it removes that ability to be flexible with the pricing should you need to later down the line. Circumstances change. That's just an inevitability. No one saw this health situation come along. So if you had a client that signed up with you or looked to sign up with you and you did a proposal, should we say in January, and it took them a couple of weeks before they came back to you and you've had a bit of a to and fro, well, they might still want to go ahead, but the crisis that a lot of the world is in and the businesses and things like that, they might think, well, I still need to have this website. I just can't afford everything that I wanted in it. Gives you the ability then to just go back and take out those little bits and pieces, streamline, and you still end up doing the project. You make not as much money, but then you're not doing as much work. So it's just clear and easy, and it just removes any ambiguity in there. And, if you sort of start saying like, okay, well, no problem, we'll drop the price to 1,800 for you, and I'll take a few things out. They're probably going to think, well, you said you're going to take a few things out, but maybe you just overcharged me to start off with. So you could potentially erode that trust that you may be building up with that new potential client. So yes, I would say, long answer short, yes, put your line items in there, price the line items, and be clear exactly what you're supplying for the price that you quote in. Okay. Good evening, Andre. I hope you're well. So, Justin, I hope that's helped at least a little bit. Please let me know in the chat if this helps. Okay, so what do we have? Just about to type that out, Paul. Great minds think alike. Cool. Steve, good point. Clients will really tell you their true budget. Agree, Paul, their proposed budget plus percentage. Yeah, it's just the nature of people. They want to get as much, when it's their money, they spend it. And like I say, when you're dealing with small businesses, they want to get as much out of their budget as possible. So they're probably going to give you a smaller amount of money than they would typically want to spend. And there's nothing wrong as well with putting together a proposal that includes some extra things. It's very rare, unless I know 100% that a client is not going to spend any more, that I won't actually put some extra things in there that I think would be useful for them. And then they can choose. I'll put them as optional. So the price will show, there's the price for the project. Excuse me. And if you want these other things, then you can simply add those in and the proposal will adjust accordingly. And then they can see the total. They can confirm it by digitally signing it. Then, we go on to the next stage, which is you pay me my deposit, and then we schedule in the project. Okay. Richard Wade, spot on. Thanks, Paul. Absolutely my pleasure. I hope it helps a little bit. Okay. Before we go any further, I want to quickly just take a look at one or two more comments, and then we're going to jump into fresh proposals and take a little look at that as well. Okay, Pablo, have you received any leads where you doubt you're able to do it? Sometimes I feel afraid of a big project, but always have been able to succeed. It's a strange feeling. Absolutely. I I could probably tell you quite a few stories about these things. If you ever feel that a potential project is beyond you, and I mean, not something that's just a little bit outside your comfort zone, but I mean, you just really think, I don't know how to build a website that does the things they want. Before you create your proposal, do some research. Do some research to see if there are tools out there that allow you to achieve that. If they're tools that are not massively expensive and the project is worth the financial gain for winning it, I've gone and spent the money on those tools to try them out to see if they would fit the mix. And you know, when you have tools like Advanced Custom Fields and Jet Engine and Pods and those kinds of things now, a lot of those limitations that you may have had prior to, you know, those kinds of tools, if you've predominantly worked with WordPress, you now kind of have a lot of those limitations. And a lot of the times where you'd have to use a different theme or a plugin that would have special features, you can kind of bypass that and you can build a lot more. So as long as you understand those kind of fundamentals, you could have a much more considered approach to finding out, could you create something that fits into this design brief? If you feel confident after that, then you could quote on it. However, if you've done some research and you still don't feel comfortable, or you just know it's right outside your wheelhouse and you couldn't provide a quality product at the end of it, be honest, open, and upfront, and just say, I've taken a look at the specifications, I've taken a look at your design brief and what you're looking for. Unfortunately, I don't think I could provide you with a quality product, something that I would be confident and proud of. So therefore, I don't think this job is for me. But good luck in what you're doing with it. And if I can help you in the future, please, by all means, do not be afraid to give me a call, drop me an email, drop in whatever method you kind of want to do. I've won contracts. I've had potential clients change what they want because of that honesty and being open and upfront in the past. So don't think that, you know, one of the things that I kind of extol on these live streams and everything else that I kind of do is you're building a relationship, and that relationship is hugely important. So if you are honest, open, and upfront with your prospect before they potentially become a client, most people will appreciate that. And you might not get that contract there and then, or it might not be right for you. But when it comes to another project that they think, actually, this might be a good fit for Paul, for John, for Dave, you know, whoever it is, they'll contact you again. That cannot be understated. You know, it's not about the win right now all the time. It can be about the win in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, in 2 years' time. Good. I've had people that I've quoted for, or I've had conversations with, had meetings with, and 5 years down the line, they've come back and I've got a project with them. Because the first ones, for whatever reason, could have been the price was too expensive, wasn't available, whatever, but they've come back. And they come back and they've told me these kinds of things. They came back because they appreciated my honesty the first time they came to see me. So if you find a project too big, you don't feel comfortable doing it, then I would say, Pablo, don't do it. Don't take it on if you're not comfortable, because there's nothing worse than giving a substandard product or service that you're not happy with. And ultimately, you end up with a client that is not happy. And then they tell people, you know, consider the fact that we've got social media, you've got Facebook, you've got Google reviews, you've got Yelp reviews, and all these different kinds of review things. You don't want to pee off a client by giving them a bad result, a bad end product, because they can do a lot of damage to your reputation. And what I've always said is it can take you years to build your reputation and seconds to lose it. And when you're a service-based business, that can kill you overnight. So be honest with yourself and just say, not for me, and then be honest with the client. So I hope that helps, Pablo. I hope it does indeed. Pairs Pluto is very nice. Plutio. It is a very good product. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly just hop over into fresh proposals. Easy for me to say, eh? And we'll take a little look at what's inside there. So this is the fresh proposals dashboard. I'm only on my second one. You never tell. Okay, so typically what you get with any kind of proposal platform is you're going to get your dashboard, which gives you a sort of an overview of what proposals are out there, how long they've been out there, the revenue you've turned over, your acceptance rates, all those kinds of things, as well as an overview of the projects that you currently have outstanding, whether you've won them, you've lost them, and so on. So that's exactly what you're getting inside Fresh Proposals. And like I say, the link to this is in the description. It's on AppSumo at the moment. It's a good deal. And like I say, I picked it up predominantly, A, as probably a backup to Better Proposals, just in case anything happens to it, and B, because it's part of a video that I want to put together in the next couple of days. But like I say, don't feel like this is something you have to use. The principles behind pretty much all of these platforms are very, very similar. So what you're kind of having is, you can see you've got your deals and your revenues. This is going to show you your lost, your won, and in this instance, your live. In other words, the proposals that are actively out there that haven't been signed off or marked as lost yet. Your revenue, well, this is pretty self-explanatory. How much money you've made based upon the proposals you've created and won inside, Fresh Proposals, and also the archived ones, although that is actually spelled incorrectly, so they need to check their spelling out. And you can set this up to be based upon the actual year that you want to look at. So you want to historically go back and take a look at what was 2019 like compared to 2018, for example. So quite useful. Then you've got your proposals, your templates, your content library, your clients, and the settings. And the settings obviously are going to allow you to do things like set up the branding, set up your logo, your color schemes, the fonts you want to use, and all those kinds of things. So I don't think I need to really go in there and show you much about that. The templates, though, that is a good starting point. And the nice thing with this is, and going back to what I said earlier in the stream, is there's no difficulty in creating your own templates, saving those, and then you can reuse those. So you could easily have a huge selection of templates. You could do SEO, you could do web design, you could do redesigns, you could do content management, e-commerce, all manner of different things. And then you could create your own different templates for those, for different kinds of projects, and also things like you could put a default template for the different kinds of contracts or agreements or whatever you want to kind of call them inside here. And then you can customize those by dropping in little tags, which, again, I'll show you in a moment. So this is easily configurable. So you can see you've got your favorites, you've got customized, system ones, and the overall library. And if you want to filter these down by category, so you may be in digital marketing, for example, you can break that down. You can see we've now got a selection of different layouts, different proposals, templates for those. And we can then take a look at them, we can edit them, we can do what we want. So let's just say we're going to be doing something like a landing page for a potential client. So now we can take a look at previewing this, and we can see, okay, that's what it looks like. And as you can see, we take a look, you've got these little sections called client first name, client last name, and so on. So when you create a client, you're obviously going to give them first name, last name, business, some basic info. And these are just like dynamic tags when it comes to things like WordPress and so on. You can just literally, it'll just link the data for the client to this, and all that data we filled out. So once you create these templates, you don't have to worry about manually putting these pieces of information into it. And again, you've got the same thing when it comes to the welcome note. You can see we've got the client first name, client last name, and it's pre-filled out our details, because this is what we set up, the color schemes and so on. So you can see with the orange and blue, but you can change all these things. These are just basically templates. Then on the left-hand side, you've got the various different sections inside the proposal. So we've got things like our approach, and you can see this is broken down. So you could easily use these as they are, change the information for what you want, or you could just start with a blank template. Up to you how you want to go with it. Your timeline, in other words, what are your deliverables? When you're going to deliver the various different key parts of the project that you're working with. Like we've just talked about, the budget, and this is where you can break down how much it's going to cost, the itemized sort of sections. So current website, the design mockups, analysis, whatever you want. So you can build this up, and you can create this based upon creating templates. So if you know that you start off with various different things, so every one of your projects for web design has the design, the design mockup. You've got the CMS installation, the hosting, some various different things that are always going to be the same. Then you can set that up as part of your template and easily start off with, hit the ground running kind of thing. Case studies can be useful, like I say, if you are trying to validate your services. So going back to what we were talking about earlier on, where things are not necessarily a tangible end product like a website, you may want to validate your ability to strategize with a potential customer or client. And this is a good way of showing that with things like, you can say, lead generation up 75% and so on. So this could be very useful when you send that out, where you can add in some case studies and some validation of how successful past clients and past projects have been. Right the way through, your terms and conditions, which I would always suggest if you are creating any kind of digital document like this, to have even just basic terms and conditions inserted into the design proposal. For mine, I put in there what's included and what's not included. In other words, what I do and what I don't do. So I'm not an SEO expert at all. So I say SEO is not included, because it's not. I will provide basic SEO. So we'll put in like a page title, meta tags, and a focus keyword. And a lot of the time that's kind of done through liaising with the client when they supply the content. But I don't do SEO, simple as that. So I put that in my terms and conditions, so there's no misinterpretation of what's going to be provided to them as part of the project. So I would 100% recommend that you put that in there. And if you want to, there's no real downside if your contract isn't 50 pages long, that you put the contract as part of this inside there as well. So then they have everything they need, and when they sign it, they're signing the contract and they're signing the design agreement or the proposal at the same time. It just comes down to what works best for you. And I would suggest, if you're going to use a platform like this, that you would A/B test that and find out, do you get a better success rate if you don't include your design contract than if you do? And then just adjust accordingly, test it and, find out what works, repeat, or whatever the phrase is. Then you've got the signature at the end of it. You can see, you can sign it based upon me being one of the signatures for the business, and then obviously the client being another signature for accepting the proposal. So that's basically what you have with one of the templates, all very simple and straightforward. You can also check what it looks like on different kinds of devices, because this is obviously a digital online version. And then you can obviously come in and you can start editing this. So you hit the edit, and once that loads in, you can then go through and edit any of the different pages. So if we want to change the text, we can see you come in, click, change the text to whatever you want. And you can see you've got a sort of page builder-esque setup. So you can adjust the fonts using headings 1 through 6, the alignment, colors, those kinds of things. And then you've also got things like adjusting the width and so on. So this is where I was saying, when you compare this to a tool like Better Proposals, you don't get this level of granularity for the majority of the proposals. So you could look at this as a good thing or a bad thing, depending upon the kind of background that you're coming in from. You might just want something that's quick and easy, at which point you just use this as a starting point, change what you need, bang, job done. So that's how you do this. You can add extra sections in, so you could create your own custom sections, add what you want in, take any of these out. You can click, we can rename, make a copy, delete it. We can adjust the order of these by just dragging and dropping them around. All really, really simple and straightforward. There's nothing complex about this. So that's a great starting point. Your content library, and this is where you would create your different blocks. So you'd have things like, your validation, your client testimonials. You could have past projects, your pricing tables, and those kinds of things. You could create those inside here, and then you can easily just drag and drop those into your proposals. Speeds up the proposal creation phase. You can just adjust and amend then as needed for the particular project. And as you can see, you can break these down into fees, images, videos. So if you've got video testimonials and the video testimonial is applicable to a type of project you're working with, well, you could create a little bank of video testimonials, and then you could drag and drop those into the relevant different kinds of proposals. Speeds up the whole process, no end whatsoever. And then you've got your clients. As you can see, we can simply come in and add a new client, at which point we can fill out those basic details. Those basic details then are used for those little dynamic tags inside the actual templates themselves. Whole process really super simple. That's kind of it. I mean, yes, there's a lot more to it than that when you only get kind of stuck into it. But the reality is that's really what you'd be doing, is working inside there. So hopefully what you can see is why a tool like this would speed up the whole process of being able to create proposals a lot quicker, a lot easier. And not just proposals, like I say, you could easily have in there your contracts, design agreements, anything you want, anything that requires sending to a client, and anything that requires like a digital signature. Just so much easier. Okay, so let me just have a little look at the comments a second. I'm conscious of the time, so I don't want to end up being a crazy late one tonight for everybody. Okay, so let's have a little look. What we got? Excellent question. Sometimes I feel the same. Paul Keating, agreed. I think everybody feels the same about these things. We all have a crisis of conscience and worry about, can we add enough value to a client to ask them for money? But you get over it. The longer you do the job, the more you work with clients, the more you deliver on what you say, over-deliver if you can, the less you care about that and the less it becomes an issue. So it is just something you do get over. Okay. X-Site Tutorials. Hi, Paul. Jacko from South Africa. I'm a freelancer. I was thinking about adding a quote form to my site with prices where the quote will add up the cost and the client selects options. What do you think? I don't see any downside to that at all. If it's a sort of online proposal and they can fill out what they need and then you itemize those different things and they can send it through, that's a good starting point for them seeing the kind of totals before they hit that submit button. Again, it's one of those good things that helps pre-qualify a potential client and gets rid of the ones that you know are tire kickers or people that are just not willing to spend that kind of money. So I would say it's a good idea. Another thing you could probably do with something like that is A/B test it. Create a quote proposal and a quote request, or quote the same thing kind of thing, and then see which gives you the best results. A/B test those, which you get more contact from, and then see which one is the most beneficial to your business. But I would say try it at least, because you've got nothing to lose by trying it. Okay. Is that not meant to be achieved rather than archived? You could well be right. Let's have a little look. Either way, they spelt it wrong. Yeah, it probably is achieved, to be honest. You are right on that one, Michael. But either way, they spelled it incorrectly. Okay, let's have a little look. Basically, email marketing such as MailChimp, etc. No idea what that was. Okay, do you do web design yourself, Paul? Woo School. Do you mean, do I do it for clients? Yes, I do. I still work with clients. I don't really take on many more clients these days because I simply don't have the time. When we had the global, global thing, I decided, well, basically my client base, because obviously the businesses had to close in the UK when we had that first lockdown, most of the businesses that I kind of work with, because they were like, a lot of them are accommodation and holiday businesses and things, or shops that already had e-commerce, my kind of business side of things, they just went dead quiet overnight, just flatlined. So I thought, well, I can either stress and worry about it, or I just double down on YouTube. So I decided I'll double down on YouTube and create content that would hopefully help people that are freelancing in business, looking for sideline gigs, maybe even people in business that couldn't afford to pay someone to do something to get them online or whatever. So I try to double down on the content that I created. And I've just found over the last 6 to 8 months that the YouTube side of things has picked up considerably. Doing the live streams has been something that I've been super excited about and really enjoyed doing. So I've kind of focused on that aspect and not looking for new clients for my business. So yes, I do still work with clients. I still have probably around 80 clients that I work with on a regular basis. And I've got some new clients that are coming on board, but I don't actively go looking for new clients these days. I just don't have the time to do everything. And thankfully, the YouTube side of things has been a massive game changer for me, my business model, and where I'm looking to go in the future. So one of the things that I like is I want to create more content like we're doing tonight, like the live streams, because these are a great way of being able to have a two-way conversation. A big part of what I want to do, and I know a lot of people are asking me about this because I've been an absolute pain in the bum for not doing this, is the course, the client lifecycle course. But you will be happy to know that my goal for the first part of next year is to get that course up online. So if you want to learn from my mistakes, to learn the different things that I've kind of picked up on, the different tools that I use, the processes that I put in place. And this is the key thing. I was having a conversation with Dave Foy yesterday, and I could sit here and tell you, do X, Y, and Z. And you could go away and copy exactly what I said, and you would probably have a certain level of success in using those tools, whatever. But that doesn't help you in the right way. My kind of main aim of everything I want to do, and the main aim of the course I want to put together, is to show you why processes. So let's just say the client lifecycle, there's 10 steps to that. The entire client lifecycle is a process with different parts in. Now, inside each one of those sections is a small group of processes. So like we're talking about tonight, the conversation, the proposal phase, those kinds of things, they have repeatable processes inside there. So what the course is all about, and not to sort of labor about this, like I say, it's just because the question kind of came up. What that course is going to be about is showing you the benefits of using processes and showing you some examples of the processes that I use. I'm not going to go to nitty-gritty because I don't think I need to show you how to build a website. I don't think I need to show you how to write a proposal because everyone's going to have a different approach. But if I can show you the benefits of creating proposals, ways of making it effective, ways of, or what tools you could look at to help you with those kinds of things, those are the things that I think are much more valuable. Like Dave said yesterday, it's the old adage, you can give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, but you can teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. So I would much rather show you the key skills to build your own processes and give you examples of my processes, and then you can take away and you can pick whatever you want from those things. And hopefully what you'll learn at the end of that course is how to have an initial contact with a client right the way through all the process until you deliver that, and then where you can go afterwards with things like care plans and so on. So I hope that answers the question, Woo School, and I hope that's kind of give you an idea of and sort of answer the sort of topic that comes up from time to time again about the course that I've talked about. It is going to happen. I am starting to shoot it in the next couple of weeks, so at least the first couple of modules will be up. So there will be more information about that coming soon. So hopefully that, like I say, will help you out in much the same way as when we have these live streams. I don't want to say use this product, use this product. I'd rather just show you the benefits of using a type of product or an approach to something, and then you can take what you want from it and you can modify it, you can adjust it. We're all different people. Every client is different. Every scenario is different. But if you kind of feel confident knowing that you can deal with those things and you've got things in place that makes that process streamlined and repeatable, just makes your life a lot easier. So that's kind of tangent off a little bit to the original question. But yes, I still work with clients, and well, hopefully that's at least answered the question. Okay, 20 minutes Q&A, Paul. Wrap up at 7:30. Sounds good to me, Carl. We'll have 20 minutes of Q&A. Oh, before we do have a Q&A, I want two more things I want to quickly show you. I'm going to just answer a couple of questions, and then we'll take a look at those things. Should a freelancer worry about setting up an LLC or a business as your own name legit? Kathy, depends what country you're in. An LLC, different in different kinds of countries. You've got like a limited liability company, limited companies, and those kinds of things. Limited companies in the UK, I can't speak for anywhere else, only really have a benefit to you. And this is my opinion, so don't take this as legal advice. Obviously, seek legal advice. They are useful if you open yourself up to large amounts of monetary. I'm going to explain this very well. Let's just say, for example, the difference between someone that's service related and someone that sells a product. If I sell a product, I've got to buy stock. So if I have a 30-day terms with a company and I buy stock in, and I've got 10 companies with 30-day terms, and I go to business, I personally am liable to pay them that money back. So they can come after me and they can repossess my house, my car, any assets that I've got. That point, a limited company, an LLC, an LTD, whatever you want to call it, that's invaluable because you work for the company, you are not the company. When it comes to a service, it's different because you don't really have the liabilities of financial burdens. So in other words, if you build a website for someone, you don't have a monetary liability for that. And in your contract, you always need to state in there that if anything happens, hosting goes down, blah, 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 you're not liable for any loss of revenue for that company. Always cover yourself with that. So I would say an LLC, limited company, is useful only in most cases if you open yourself up to financial risk. Being a service-related company, you generally don't open yourself up to it because you are a service. So you don't hold and sell items, at which point you'd have to have terms with companies and potentially owe them lots of money. Hope that helps. Okay. Let's just have one more thing. Okay. Now, one other thing I want to sort of just go over is the alternative to fresh proposals, and also the contract that I've talked about, the starting point contract. So the alternative to fresh proposals is better proposals. And I will be honest, this is the tool that I use. I used to use a different one. I used to use BidSketch, which was good. But better proposals came up on a lifetime deal on AppSumo a couple of years back. So I grabbed it to save myself that ongoing cost that I was having to pay every single month to the alternative. This is a great platform, but obviously it is one of those ones that you are going to have to pay monthly for now. Excuse me. So that deal has obviously gone. But I use this. I really like it, and it's the one that I've been using for a couple of years and had plenty of success with. Link is in the description. So take a look at that, compare that to the tool like Better Proposals. BidSketch was the alternative, which again is another good product. I just don't use that anymore. So I would say for me, take a look at Fresh Proposals because it's on a lifetime deal. It means that your overheads are capped at that one-time payment, job done, nothing more to pay. Online proposals with, we'll get rid of that. With Better Proposals, you will have an ongoing cost, but it is a mature platform that's been around for probably 5 or 6 years. If that means something to you and you don't mind paying for that, I would say check out Better Proposals. Like I say, links in the description. That's that out of the way. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the contract. You have to have a contract in place. This is the one that I would suggest you start out with if you're new to contract, if you don't want to get stuck into the whole legal side of things. Use it, adjust it to your heart's content, and then get it checked out. Might cost you £50, $50 for an hour of, or half an hour of some legal advice. But at least that way you'll know that you've got something in place. And the thing that I like about this contract and why I swapped over to this, excuse me, is pretty much like I said at the beginning. It is very focused on not being restrictive. It's being a very open contract, but it gives you the ability to easily create another revenue stream if clients want to expand or change what you've agreed with the design proposal that they've signed off on. Have a read through it yourself, because it is one of those things that it's written in plain English. There's no legal jargon. There's no legal speak. It's a great starting point. Like I say, adjust it to meet your requirements. But this is the basis of what I used. And the thing I like about it is that there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, which you don't generally tend to find when it comes to legal documents. So you've got things like about sending the boys round. Well, one of the jokes that we used to have before was that in the business that I had prior to this, by freelancing, we were known as the boys. Not because we used to go around and beat people up, obviously, but we were just known as the boys. So we used to make a joke about it, saying like, we'll send the boys around. And it's like, oh, well, we are the boys. But it's nice to have a contract that doesn't scare the living daylights out of a potential client. When you're dealing with businesses, as in like businesses that are established and they have legal departments, or they're happy to work with contracts and things, that's different. But as freelancers, as small business owners, whatever, we're going to be dealing with smaller individuals, smaller companies, SMEs, those kinds of things. And they don't necessarily understand the whole legal side of things, which is understandable because I don't really understand it either. So just giving them something that doesn't scare the living daylights out of them, again, it can be just one of those little things that just endears you to those people. You know, it's like, well, you're not going to give me legal talk. You're not going to give me jargon, all this kind of stuff. I feel like I can actually work with you. You know, don't underestimate these little things. They are important. They can make a difference, and they can help you win those contracts and gain those clients. So take a look at the Contract Killer. It's open source. You can modify to your heart's content. Just get it checked out to make sure that you cover yourself in the eventuality that there's something in there that you're not too sure of. And that way, you know that what you put out there is going to be solid and cover you. Take a look at it. It's quite good. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes, I believe. Carl is asking for Q&A time. So let's do some Q&A. What questions do you have for me? Steve Pro, any news on the T-shirts and or the inner circle? The two of those. T-shirts, I'm ordering another batch to just check them out. If you're UK-based, and this is the thing, the difficulty for me with the T-shirts and any of the kind of merchandise we've talked about, you know, T-shirts being, you know, the design, create, inspire kind of things. If you're UK-based, drop me a message on Facebook, drop me a comment on Facebook, whatever you want, and we'll have a chat about it, and I can get that sorted out. It's when it comes to other parts of the world, makes it a bit more complicated, looking for logistical ways of being able to send that side of things out to other parts of the world. It will happen at some point. I'm just not too sure when. So, Steve, just message me and we can have a chat about it without a problem. I'm doing an order anyway because I've got to get some stuff over to Carl for his being such an awesome, supportive person with these live streams. So there is an order going in before Christmas, so just drop me a message if you want to. The other thing you're saying, the inner circle, I'm still toying with ways of doing that, but I've bought a system that allows us to have up to a certain amount of people in there where we can have like a green room, we can have a chat session where we can, if you've got a camera and or a microphone, you can actually get involved like this, but instead of it being, you know, just a sort of conversation where you're typing things in, we can have a bit more interaction there, and also like virtual tables outside and so on. So there is a system in place. I need to test that out. So I'm looking to probably do the inner circle more than likely the beginning of the year. And it'll also embrace the various other things that I've kind of got in the pipeline that I think would be quite cool. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, I'm not too sure who's done the super chat at the top. Let me just have a quick look. Rob from Humber Web Design. Thank you very much, first of all, for the super chat. I used your excellent My Account template on client site this afternoon again, so I figure I owe you a PR at the very least. You probably don't remember me, but Bobby Palmer in the Facebook group. I do remember Bobby Palmer, and thank you very much, Rob. You are an absolute gentleman, and I'm glad to hear that that template has been useful. I might create some more things like that because the dashboard, the account side of things, has been a pretty popular tutorial. The same goes for the one that I've done on WooCommerce. So I might create a couple more. Let me know if you'd like to see a couple more designs like that. Totally free. I have no intention of charging anybody for these kinds of things because they're great for me to use as part of the tutorials. And I love making those available so you can use those and use them with your clients and do what you bloody well want with them. So let me know if you'd like to see more of those kinds of things, and I'll take a look at potentially creating some more designs when I get some free time as part of tutorials, and then you can have access to those Elementor templates as part of the tutorial. Let me know. But good to hear that you've used them and you found them useful. Okay. Let's have a little look. Wow, so many. Woo School, Contract Killer, what a gem. It is. It's been going for absolute years, but it's just a great starting point. Tony B, not quite sure if my end. Audio has gone quite low. Is the audio still okay for everybody else? Please do let me know. Nothing's changed on my end, but never know. These things do happen. Technical. Okay. So we've got Frank, awesome advice on the contract. Please do take away whatever you want from this. Like I say, if it's useful for you, crack on with it. That's why I like these live streams. I think they're awesome for just being able to sort of check these little gems out there that can be really useful. Andrew Downey. Contracts are sometimes frightening for them, and in all honesty, so sometimes as simple as possible. But the last one pointed out looks like a good one. Honestly, Andrew, it is a good one. It is a really useful one. Have a read through it. It's only a couple of pages long. It's written in human speak, not legal speak. And I think you'll find that it's not as frightening for potential clients. And Andrew, my customers are all local businesses, mom and pop style businesses, if you want to use American vernacular. Agreed. I mean, if you work even if you work in a city, doesn't mean to say you're going to end up working with big companies. I think this is the beauty of being a freelancer or being a small company, maybe 2 or 3 people that are involved in it. Sometimes it's nice to work with those small businesses because you build up a relationship, and it's not that faceless kind of corporate environment, which I know for me just doesn't appeal to me. I've always been about building relationships with my clients, and that's why I've got clients that I've been working with for 15 years. It's not because I'm working with them every single week or month. I might not see them for 6, 12, 18 months, but they don't go anywhere else because we've got that working relationship. They've got ideas, they've got suggestions. They phone me up and ask me, does it make money for me? Well, a lot of the time, absolutely not. But they feel confident knowing that they can come to me to talk to me, run ideas past me, knowing that I'm not just there to sell them something. Not like your typical solicitor or your accountant, where you pick up the phone and they press a button that's automatically charging you. There's a lot to be said for building relationships and working with small companies, like you say, your mom and pop kind of businesses. I like that. For me, that's the kind of company I would much rather work with, because they are more appreciative of that relationship than a corporate company, which you're just dealing with, a contact inside there, and you're just dispensable, disposable, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, that's my opinion on it, Andrew. So hopefully that's at least in line with what you're saying. Okay, Richard Way, definitely would like you to do more updated tutorials on directory sites, business listings, job sites, as you started pairing different plugins from your past videos. That is on the cards. This is the thing I like doing. I like taking tools and combining them together to create something more than their part. They're bigger than the sum of their parts, as it were. And this is where the video that I want to put out, I was aiming to do it so early this week, but just things have kind of got in the way, and some technical things that I need to iron out with the developers to make sure that it works the way that I want it to, and all those kinds of boring things. But I like taking those different tools to create something that is bigger than the tools themselves, like you say, the directories and those kinds of things. So there are more tutorials coming like that. As with everything, it's literally a case of having the time to do everything, and that's the crazy thing. But there's going to be something coming up with CrockerBlock soon, because they are bringing out a new version of Jet Engine, which I believe is in beta. I just haven't had the time to test it out. So I will be doing a long format video on combining various different aspects with some of their new features. So keep an eye out for that. That is something that's coming, because that's the last of the sponsored videos that I've got with CrockerBlock. So there is something coming that's sort of like more comprehensive. Okay, hopefully, Richard, that will answer your question there as well. My sound isn't up to my normal high standards. I'm not too sure why. Everything else is the same as normal. So maybe it's just you two playing silly sods. Maybe it's a case of because my technical issues at the beginning have caused a problem. Hopefully everything will be okay for you. At least hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. Maybe it's just me. Okay. Andrew Downey, totally agree. Some customers have become friends, others, well, let's not go there. Not every customer is a good fit. That's all I'm going to say. Stalkers, we've lived that dream as well. Yeah, totally. Okay, what else do we have? You must have a cold. I do have a bit of a cold, to be honest. Yeah, I need more beer. And on that one, I agree. Would you keep using Wave Financial? I need to talk about that. So if you're not familiar, Wave is an online accounting platform. So if you're in the US or Canada, this will not affect you in the slightest. However, anywhere else in the world that's outside US and Canada, they, through the way that other countries, which I'm assuming is the UK predominantly because they've changed things, it means that they're pulling out of those countries. They're no longer providing, you can't sign up from the December the 1st. If you're outside the US or Canada, you can't sign up for a Waves account. So I'm absolutely bummed because I've got like 4 or 5 years of accounts on there. They're not closing any existing accounts down yet, but it does mean that I've got to take a look at the fact that my financial year ends at the end of March. So from March, I'll probably be taking a look at swapping over to something else to do my accounts. But if you are in the US or you are in Canada, then I would highly recommend Waves. because up until this change of direction, they've been absolutely fantastic. Unless you want technical support, at which point you then have to pay. So just bear that in mind, that if you have a problem, you just want some advice, you're going to have to pay for that technical support. And if you're outside the US or Canada, you can't now sign up for Wave. So I need to look for an alternative. So unfortunately, I can't recommend them anymore, which is a bit of a bummer, because the scripting and all the information together I put together for this video that I keep referencing included Waves as part of it. So that's going to have to be taken out or modified accordingly. So yeah, Waves, great platform. Just unfortunately, if you're outside the US or Canada, not really useful for you anymore whatsoever. Charlie Bird. Then all I would say, excuse me, is it might be better now, because you've literally only just started using it, to look at an alternative, just so you don't end up getting 6 months in and you find that then they just say, well, actually, any accounts outside the US or Canada, we're closing everything, because that's going to be an absolute total pain. So I would suggest take a look. I'm going to take a look at FreshBooks. I don't really want QuickBooks, because we used to use that in the business before and I just didn't like QuickBooks. I'm going to take a look at, like I say, FreshBooks. It's a paid-for platform, which is a bit of a pain, because one of the beauties of Waves was that it was a free platform. But you know, your accounts are important, so sometimes you're going to have to pay for it. So maybe FreshBooks would be an alternative to look at. Okay. Hello, Carl. Okay. 2 beers in and I can't speak. Right, Phil Davis, ta-da for now. Going to find my stash of Brewdog. Enjoy, Phil. Enjoy your stash of Brewdog, and enjoy CSS Hero as well. Okay, look at FreshBooks. Zoho, yeah, WP Tonic. Zoho is the one that they're recommending swapping over to if you are a Waves customer. Apparently, I think the transfer process is something that they've worked with Zoho on even. So how have you found Zoho? What's it like as a platform? Is it good, bad? You know, what's your experience with it? Please do let me know, because I'm still kind of toying with the idea of, do I go down that route or not? Right, creative fantasy. I'm going to ask this question because it's come up a few times now. ABC, right, QA, ABC Pharmacy 2. Now, this is one of those things that I get asked a lot with the geolocation of map data and stuff like that. I would be brutally honest with you, I have no idea. I really don't know what platform you can use for it. If you want to geo-target things, you can take a look at IfSo, because IfSo has geo-targeting, and IfSo is also on lifetime on AppSumo at the moment. And the only restriction, I believe, in IfSo with regards to the AppSumo deal is the number of geolocation requests that you can make. So the higher the plan you go on it, the more geolocation requests you can make. So maybe take a look at that and see if that's something that's useful. The problem you've always got with any kind of geolocation is what data is going to be sent from the browser, and if the user is going to allow data to be sent from the browser to any kind of geolocation service. If that's turned off, it makes it completely useless to you. So take a look at IfSo. That might be the solution to your problem. But other than that, creative fantasy, I do apologize. This is one of those areas that I just have no experience in. So I don't want to give you any kind of misinformation when I don't really know what the heck I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to leave that answer there, because like I said, I'm not going to give you misinformation. Richard, Zoho 1 is a great suite of tools. Haven't tried the accounts yet. Zoho's been good for years. So again, it's one of those things that does have a history of being around for quite some time. So maybe I'll do a little bit more research into it over Christmas when I take a little bit of a break. Now, speaking of breaks, I do want to say we've got 2 weeks now until the next live stream, which is going to be what, the 17th, I believe, of December, if my maths are not too bad. We're going to have a break. That'll be the end of season 1 or series 1 of the lockdown live. So there might be the odd live stream over Christmas. It depends. I could just sort of think, well, bugger it, I'm going to do a live stream. But just so you know that the next live stream in 2 weeks' time is going to be the last one this side of the new year. We'll start season 2, series 2 in January. So there's going to be a little bit of a break. just so I can kind of recap on some of the things that I want to take a look at, and maybe take a look at how I reshape what Lockdown Live is going to be. Maybe even rebrand it to something different, because Lockdown Live is only going to be any use while we're in lockdown. So just so you know, what else do we have? FreshBooks was good if you wanted to add your accountant with that much fuss. That was another thing that was good about Waves. You could literally just set up your accountant, or you could set up anybody you want, but you set your accountant up inside there, and then just literally give them access to only what you want to give them access to, and they could do their job and then log out and you're done. I've done that for the last 3 or 4 years, and my accountant's been quite happy with it. So I'm just really bummed that it's going to stop supporting the UK at some point in the future, because it's been a really good, solid platform for me. I've used it for a couple of years. All my accounts are on there. Everything is on there. I just really don't want to go and start everything from scratch. It's just like, that's just not my idea of fun. Accounts is not my idea of fun. Yeah, what are you going to do? We've been locked down of sorts for years, Paul. I don't see things getting much better for a long time. Sadly, that's very, very true. Right, Carl's given me an ultimatum. He says, I have to wrap up, or he's going to come around and break my kneecaps. Harsh. Okay, maybe we should do a Christmas Eve edition of live stream as his bugger all on TV. God, you must be bored if you'd rather watch me on TV on Christmas Eve. Although, let's be honest about it, I think we'd all be partaking of the odd sherry. So maybe I'll do something like that. It just won't be a lockdown live. It'll just be an impromptu jump onto YouTube, have a chat, have a laugh, talk rubbish for a little while, and sup a few drinks of whatever variety. So never say never. I tell you what, Carl is a serious taskmaster. I'm going to open another beer up now. Okay, so we'll take 2 more questions, and then we're going to call it a night, which I'm sure Carl will be happy about. I'm just joking, Carl. Love you, really. Charlie Bird drinking game. Oh, that would end in a really, really bad way. But the other thing, like I say, I might also take a look at the platform that I've invested in to do the potential inner circle kind of thing. And for anyone that doesn't know what the inner circle is, it's a tentative name for if you want to get more out of the sort of the live conversations, it's going to be a subscription model. So you will pay a monthly subscription. I haven't figured this out yet. This is just chucking ideas out there. A monthly subscription, at which point we'll have streams like this, but instead of it just being open on YouTube, we'll have a dedicated location that only Inner Circle members will have access to. Hopefully we'll have the ability to share cameras, so we can have that conversation where you can put your hand up, put your hand up kind of thing. You can come on then on the camera. We'll have a split screen kind of thing. We'll have a conversation, answer the question, talk about the topic, whatever it is, and then we can kind of do that. That's what the Inner Circle is. I haven't figured out the logistics of it just yet, but it is something that will happen more than likely 2021. But I want to be able to give more one-to-one time to different topics. It's not going to be specifically about things like advanced custom fields and dynamic web design, those kinds of things. I kind of feel like the tutorial format is much better for that, because I can be so much more detailed in that, and you can rewind, you can pause, you can replay, you can do whatever you want with it. These are much more useful, these live streams, these one-to-ones, these webinars, whatever you want to call them, where we can talk business, we can talk ideas, we can talk strategies. I can answer questions from my experience, but also I can hand the mic over to other people. I want to have people like Dave Foy, people like Casey Senior, different people that I've been lucky enough to call friends over the last, sort of like 12, 18 months, to get those guys involved as well. And we can have these conversations, we can chuck ideas out there, and we can have these, a convo with these one-to-one chats and stuff. And we can all benefit from everybody's wisdom. I think we all have something to give, and that's why I think the Inner Circle will be something that will be so cool. So if you're interested, keep an eye out, because this will be something that comes into reality in 2021. So let me know. What's the best way to get clients with no advertising budget? Depends on what way you want to get them, to be honest. If they have no budget, there's probably not a lot of point in getting them, because they're not going to give you any money. So yeah, I would say I wouldn't worry about it, to be honest. I would look for clients that are going to be long-term clients that are going to give you a good income, and you're going to build up a good relationship. Anything that if you have no advertising budget, do you really want that kind of client? That to me would be a red flag. Lockdown needs to end so we can have a real live meetup. Absolutely, it'd be absolutely awesome to get together and actually drink BrewDog face to face and just have a chilled laugh. At some point, that will happen. I mean, obviously, this is going to be a UK-based thing to start off with, but I am looking to hopefully get to, like, we've got the Elemental meetups or WordPress meetups and stuff in other countries. I'd love to do some of those in the next couple of years when they become a viable option again, at which point then I can hopefully meet some of you guys from other countries. That'll be super awesome to do. So, yeah. But face-to-face is going to happen at some point. Okay, let's have a little look. Most likely meetup will be centre of UK somewhere, so it's balanced in terms of travel. Oh, no. You're all coming to Wales because I'm not traveling anywhere. I'm going to play a diva now. No, I'm just joking. I'm happy. I say I don't mind. Be happy to sort of arrange to go away somewhere and just have a little bit of a chat, get together when this is all viable. Like I say, Birmingham kind of way would probably be quite good for people that are all over the country. Whatever happens, it would be good to get together and actually meet face to face and see some of the people behind the avatars and stuff on Facebook and those kinds of things. Okay, so I'm sure, but I don't speak Welsh. Neither do I. So don't worry about it. As long as you can order a beer, that's all that matters. Okay, right. So I'm going to just call it a night there. So hopefully you found what we've covered tonight useful. As always, if you're not part of the WPTuts Facebook group, head over to wptuts.co.uk/Facebook, subscribe, become part of the WP crew over on Facebook, get involved in the conversation, become part of the crew, and we can just carry on any kind of conversation we have here over there as well. Love to see you over there. I hope you stay safe. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's live stream, and I really look forward to the next one on the 17th, I believe, of December, and maybe an impromptu one in between that and the new year. But for now, I'm going to say a super thank you very much for joining me again tonight. I will catch up with you very, very soon, and hopefully see a lot of you over in the WPTuts Facebook group. Take care and have a fantastic evening.